All right, everyone, it's time for a farcical story here, which is that the Catholic Pope has decided to endorse civil unions for same-sex couples, and I'm thinking, like the 90s called, they want their neoliberal platform back. Right now, you've got a surreal moment where leftists are like cheering on an old relic of a dying religious establishment, an organized religion, which is flush with trillions of dollars in untold gold and other assets. Celebrating him for taking up the most lukewarm, milquetoast possible political policy position. Ex cathedra, by the way, it's just his personal opinion. He's not even enshrining it in church canon. He's just saying that he doesn't consider you a sinner if you're a politician and you think that gay people should be allowed to give property to one another through a state civil contract. It's a farce. It's also non-story, technically speaking. The legacy media dogpiled on a bit because the Pope has repeatedly, he's called out libertarianism. He's professed himself to be fundamentally a Marxist. He's talked about how evil capitalism is, despite, again, being essentially set up for life as part of a multi-trillion-dollar organized religion, which exists literally by grifting off of people that are afraid to die. And that is what Catholicism is. Organized religion is a sham. And I say this, I'm no longer strictly an atheist. I'm irreligious. I don't really care. People can go to a church or a temple if they want, but ultimately it's just a money grab. It's essentially the misuse by a largely political establishment. In the case of the Catholic Church, I would say it's literally a civic entity in the Vatican City sense. It is essentially an establishment which uses the biological drive for survival and warps it in order to make profit. It's funny because it's sort of like a commensalist relationship. You're giving something to the church, and it's causing you a detriment. It's taking your money, and it's not really saving your soul. That's not what's happening when you go to church. I'm sorry, but that particular system is bullshit, just to tell the truth. And the Catholic Pope is bullshit, too. This is a man who refuses to investigate priest abuse. This is a man who is a self-professed Marxist, the most bloody institution that's ever existed in the history of mankind, responsible over the last 100 years for more than 100 million deaths. If he cares, I guess the idea is, well, if the state bans all the churches, there's no church there. You get a commie system, they tend to be strictly atheist. If you rob people of the knowledge of Jesus, then they become like enlightened pagan mode. Like Dante saying, well, the people that existed before Christianity, they can't really go to hell unless they were like evil people anyway. So they don't go to heaven, but their circle of hell is kind of like above purgatory. And they've got like King Minos is there and stuff. If you've ever read Dante's Inferno, it's a good book, but it's kind of extra canonical, I believe, in some senses. Just saying. That's sort of the feeling that you get here. I guess that the Pope just wants people to die of starvation and stuff because Jesus loves the little children, and under communism lots of little children die, so they never sin or anything like that, so I guess they go to heaven or something like that. I know I'm mouthing off a little bit about organized religion, but I can't help it when the Catholic Pope is talking about how finally he's had a revelation. Civil unions aren't a sin anymore, according to the Pope. Well, write it down in your canon law and then shove it up our ass, because really we've gone beyond, in most of the enlightened world, we've gotten beyond the point where we allow the state to discriminate against people because of their sexual proclivities in that manner. A civil union and gay marriage, by the way, are basically the same thing anyway, except that the civil union is minus the term marriage. This was one of the main arguments we had over this fucking shit in the United States up until a few years ago when finally SCOTUS got involved. By the way, there are still people that think Biden had a hand in legalizing gay marriage. Gay marriage was legal in Utah, not long into the fight, actually, years before it was legalized nationwide. Obama didn't have anything to do with it. All he did as a contribution is not defend DOMA. Then Biden, I don't think, gave a shit. I think he was a civil union Democrat for a while, and as vice president finally takes it up as an issue once it's already half won. This is the Democrats really were sucking hind tit on the gay marriage issue. Basically, all it's saying is that gay couples can get a marriage contract. It doesn't force a church in any way. It doesn't compel them to file gay marriages. If you walk into a Catholic church and try to get a gay marriage there, you're not going to get one, because it's against their religious beliefs. They believe that it happens to be sinful, marriages between a man and a woman. There were so many religious people that were swearing up and down at me during this issue, because I'm unabashedly pro-gay rights. Just so everyone knows, yes, I supported gay marriage long before most Democrats did, because it's a contract. It's a legal contract. It's about property and medical decision making. It doesn't matter if you call it marriage or not. There's no difference between a civil union and a gay marriage anyway, except that the latter would be issued potentially in a church. By the way, churches were being impeded in their First Amendment rights by not being allowed to issue them. The Universalists and a few other churches were already on board with it long ago. Well, they were prevented from issuing those under the civil union system. It's still a form of discrimination writ large. The Pope coming out and doing this is the PR Pope just can't stop himself. He's doing this in order to look hip, progressive, and I'm thinking to myself, Jesus Christ, again, you're living in the 1990s. That was a while ago at this point. He thinks of it as ancient history, I suppose. You know, he's what is he, 80 fucking years old or something. He still had some color in his hair back then. He was still able to get it up for the altar boy back then, back when he was just a lowly bishop or whatever the fuck he was. It's stupidity. This isn't progress. And it's a church who fucking gives a shit what the Pope says. Catholic Pope. Because there's more than one. Just to be clear, that title. Papa. He's the ultimate Papa of society. It was funny because Dennis Leary had a bit about how Catholicism was entirely based on hat size. So like the Pope had all sorts of... Benedict doesn't do this as much. He typically just wears the beanie. One thing I will say for him is that the pomp and golden robes and scepters and sort of thing, he sort of doesn't do. And even if he's just doing it for show, because he wants younger people to, displace the aging Catholic population that actually tithes and gives a shit, because he wants money, essentially. He's the PR Pope. At the very least, on its surface, it's a little bit less stupid than it was under the last few popes. A Ratzinger, the Nazi Pope, as I used to call him. But the idea that the Catholic Church is progressive because the Pope endorses something that's been, legal in most of the Western world for a very long time. Again, the church struggling to keep up with what year it is. So instead of it being, 1920, I guess now it's 1985 or 1990 according to the Pope. They operate on a different timeline from most people. I just found this funny. Sorry, but to all of you Catholics out there, no, I'm not going to let the Pope get away with it unscathed. I just thought it was funny, and if you're being honest, as a Catholic, you'd probably crucify him for this too, because if you're more progressive, if you're like a liberal Catholic, you're like, well, why doesn't he just fucking canonize gay marriage or something? Why doesn't he just do a 180? And if you're more religious, you probably think, oh my God, he's not really the Pope. Vatican II is unacceptable. He's a heretic. So I'm not actually sure who benefits by this in the sense of having a Catholic group that grows its user base. I would think that it would just cause maybe the liberal Catholics to calm down slightly while really opening up an issue that now will plague the Catholic Church, because what will happen now is that, he's old, so he'll be replaced. If the next Pope says, well, no, that's not canonical, it's still a sin, then millions of Catholics will riot probably, especially in South America. That's about all. Peace out.